Thank you, LSU, for putting up and for saying, hey, we want all the smoke at the beginning of the year.
This is going to be a hell of a game. The most interesting matchup to me, week one.
How will that O-line stack up against Clemson's D-line? Week one of college football is going to be awesome, but one of the top matchups, going to talk Texas, Ohio State, there's a bunch of others, but one of the biggest marquee early matchups of the season is LSU going to Clemson. Now, what makes this game fascinating to me, there's multiple things, but we actually have returning quarterbacks and two guys that are expected to be Heisman finalists in Cade Klubnik for Clemson and Garrett Nussmeier for LSU. I will say, one of my favorite parts about this is it's not a neutral site game. We're not playing this somewhere in Arizona. This is going to be in Clemson, and we all know how LSU has struggled in those opening games and how that's, kind of set them back, and then they'll go on a run and then drop a couple late and barely miss the playoffs. But I cannot think of a better matchup with the returning quarterbacks in week one than LSU and Clemson. David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback to my left, Blaine Crain, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver to my right. Coney, when you look at this game, we can talk about the returning players. We can talk about LSU trying to take that next step defensively or just be good enough with what they have on offense, the transfer portal, what they did, bringing in Barry and Brown and guys on the outside that can really do it along with Nussmeier. We'll be interested to see the offensive line. The first thing that pops into my head when I think about this game is red zone. Because when you have returning quarterbacks, and you can speak on this better than anybody, yeah, you put in new plays, there may be some new terminology, but we've seen Cade and Garrett Riley for a while. We've seen LSU and Nussmeier. He knows the system. He knows the offense. I think even though Clemson's D-line with Peter Woods and what they have on the edge, we know how talented that group's going to be. Each team will be able to move the ball in between the 20s. I'm just interested in when we get to the red zone, who's going to be able to score touchdowns and who's going to kick field goals, because that's been a bugaboo for LSU in some of these early season losses. Hell, they can move it in between the 20s, but they get down to the red zone, they end up kicking field goals or not getting it on fourth down. I mean, what's one thing that stands out to you about this match? Because I cannot wait for this game, man.
Well, I want to start with this, and I've said this a couple times over the last few years, and I want to reiterate it here. Kudos to LSU for scheduling opening games like this one.
Hell yeah.
And I know LSU fans have been frustrated. You lose a pair to Florida State in the home-and-home situation they had with them. They lose to USC a year ago. Now you're going to go on the road to open the season at Clemson at 6:30 at night for a battle of the true Death Valley, which I think is fascinating. Thank you, LSU, for putting up and for saying, hey, we want all the smoke at the beginning of the year. Now, you talked about the quarterback situation. These were two of my top quarterbacks returning this year. I think most people are going to have them in the top 5 of their list, and not just at the college level. I think both of these guys have a chance to be really good pros. And we had Matt Moscona on here. I believe he was saying Garrett Nussmeier is the only returning 4,000-yard passer, and Cade Klubnik at Clemson, while losing in the college football playoff to Texas the way they did was tough, Cade Klubnik played a great game, so he ended his year on a high note. So I'm really excited to see these two quarterbacks battle each other. But then again, talking to Moscona last week, which you haven't heard that interview, I would encourage everyone to go to our YouTube channel and check out what he had to say about LSU, but improving across the roster, right? And saying that this is going to be a better LSU team for Brian Kelly than even the season when Jaden Daniels wins the Heisman Trophy at quarterback and has Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. on the outside, because they address so many different needs across every facet of the game. My question for you guys is this, and I want to read down the schedules at some point for both teams, but could this be a college football playoff matchup preview that we're getting in week one?
I mean, yeah. What I think is fascinating, and obviously we're talked about Texas and Ohio State, who played in the college football playoff last year. This is why, and I know some LSU fans are going to want to throw the chair in the room when I say this. I feel like this is almost a win-win if you're LSU, because at the end of the day, when you look at Clemson's roster, what they're bringing back in the ACC, there's no such thing as a great loss. I hate that term, right? But every loss is not weighed the same. If you go and lose this game on the road, by the time we get to the end of the season, this could look really, really good on the resume, and it's early in the year where you could have time to move up and get back in position, and you won't get penalized as much. Because the minute this game ends, Clemson fans need to become huge LSU fans. LSU fans need to become huge Clemson fans. So if you go win this game on the road, it's a hell of a win. I mean, there may be one game that there could be a bigger win for a road team, and that's Texas going to Ohio State, which they're breaking in 2 new quarterbacks, as we talked about. I know where LSU fans are right now, Blaine. They're so sick of losing this first game. They're so sick of starting off on the wrong foot. Talk about USC. We can go back through it. They've lost a bunch of them in a row.
Yeah.
And you're probably, I got to look at the lines. I haven't looked at the line yet. You're probably going to be an underdog, I would think.
Clemson's favorite.
Minus 2.5.
Going into this game. But at the end of the day, I would, to your point, I want to know early how we are. I'll use Auburn as an example. Beat Alabama A&M 85-0. You had no idea how good Auburn was because they beat those guys at birth. No offense. This game, and I'd rather catch a team like this early. I would rather play Clemson week 1 on the road than week 4 when they've had time to get this well-oiled machine. So if you're an LSU fan, I think this is a great situation. You obviously want to win the game. It could be a huge springboard into the season, but by no means are you dead if you lose this game.
No, from a survivability standpoint, if you're LSU, you lose this game, you'll be in a better spot than if Clemson would lose this game. Because you're in the SEC. You're going to play against better teams. You go down and look at Clemson's schedule, you lose this game, there's not a lot of teams on that schedule that's going to be able to make up in the eyes of the committee if you drop a couple more. I mean, go look at Miami. You win 10 games, you lose a couple of not great teams, and you'll find yourself not in the playoffs. So I think LSU can afford to lose this game more than Clemson does just because of the conference and the schedule that you have. But I know LSU fans. I talked to plenty of LSU fans about this game over the weekend. They're sick of losing openers. They're sick of it with the talent that you had. You have to imagine they watched that offense with Jane Daniels and all those weapons not even make it to a playoff.
Yeah. Well,
not even go win a national championship. Brian Kelly's in a really sticky spot this year. Dabo, you say what you want about that Texas game. You made it. You made it and you showed. Brian Kelly can win 10 games or 9 games, not make the playoff, and still be in extremely, extremely hot water. Because just like Alabama fans, just like Georgia, LSU's not willing to wait too long. They're not going to wait too long with the talent that walks around in Baton Rouge day in and day out. If you can't get it done, they're going to find somebody who can.
Well, I think it would take an absolute disaster for LSU to fire Brian Kelly when you look at the contract situation and kind of where LSU is financially right now. But they win 10 games, they're going to be in. But to your point, it's not just the starting off that LSU fans are tired of. They're sick of not being at the dance. And the reason you haven't been at the dance is because you haven't been balanced. That isn't shocking news. I would rather the seesaw be like this than like this. We've watched LSU's offenses cook. I mean, I would still be sick if I was an LSU fan with what you had with Jaden Daniels in that crew on offense. So I think you would sacrifice being an incredibly elite offense to be an overall really good football team. That's why Blake Baker, who's one of the highest paid defensive coordinators in the country, we talk about Hugh Freeze and you've had time to build it up. All right. Now, you have improved. It's not as bad as it was, previously, but they're not paying you all this money to just be good at LSU defensively. And it's still so weird to me, David, to look at LSU and be like, God, they're just average on defense. Because I grew up watching LSU rip people's face off on defense. I mean, God, go back to just look at some of these guys. Look at some of these teams. Les Miles and them were running an offense from 1873. But look what they had on defense. But as far as this matchup goes, another key element is LSU with what they lost on the offensive line, and I know transfer portal and recruiting, how will that O-line stack up against Clemson's D-line? Because last year, we thought LSU's offensive line, you remember going into the USC game? We're like, they're going to run through these guys like bad chicken. And LSU, I thought from a running standpoint, underachieved with that offensive line they had this year.
Yeah.
So you've had to replace some guys, and you're going up against NFL players on this Clemson defensive line that can give it to you any way you want it. So can you protect Nuss with a run game? Because you're going to have to, because where has LSU struggled? When they haven't been able to protect and Nussmeier gets too cute, or he over-anticipates, or you bring the house and he puts the ball up for grabs. I'm telling you, Clemson's going to be coming on defense. They're going to test you out early to see if they can get there without bringing the pressure, but best believe that they're going to bring something with them. That's going to happen. Good Rancher's commitment to American sourcing doesn't just protect you from unknown imports, but it also guards you against unpredictable prices at the grocery store, as we've seen, and as tariffs go into effect. So why not go ahead and get $40 off with our code BOOSTER plus free meat for life? Yeah, you heard that right, at goodranchers.com. Because did you know that over 85% of grass-fed beef sold in U.S. stores is imported? Well, Good Ranchers, they're tariff-proof. Because imported meat costs more, but not theirs. They're 100% American cuts. And a 100% American supply chain that protects you from unstable prices and gives you confidence in the meat you buy and the price you pay. They're 100% American sourced. Every cut of beef, chicken, pork is born, raised, and harvested right here in the good old USA at local farms with American families. So you can support American ranchers while knowing exactly where your meat comes from. Then it's delivered right to your door for the ultimate convenience. No antibiotics ever, no added hormones, no seed oils. Just one simple ingredient you can read, and that's meat. Whereas imported meat can be unpredictable because they have different safety and quality standards, and we don't trust that. So $40 off, use the code BOOSTER, and get free meat for life at goodranchers.com. Use that code, BOOSTER. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered.
Well, to the point about the college football playoff, remember that committee left 3 SEC teams out last year who went 9-3.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's actually going to be easier for Clemson to still make the college football playoff if they drop this than LSU. But let's just read down both schedules here quickly. This is LSU's. Obviously, going on the road to Clemson here with the game that we're talking about. After that, Louisiana Tech at home, Florida at home, Southeast Louisiana. So they get 3 in a row at home. Then at Ole Miss, then they have a bye week. Then they host South Carolina at Vanderbilt, Texas A&M at home, at Alabama, Arkansas at home, Western Kentucky at home, and then they end by going on the road to Oklahoma.
Okay. I mean,
so, and again, you have to think 10-2, right?
Yeah.
I mean, unless, and again, every year is going to be circumstantial. I'm not saying that they, and remember,
a 9-3 team could possibly.
Remember, it was Clemson who got in at 9-3, but again, to the point, they were the ACC champion.
Well, I think the question you ask yourself is, does 9-3 get you in the SEC championship game?
Yeah, okay.
That's going to be your obviously the easiest route because you get the automatic bid like Clemson did. As far as Clemson's schedule, do we got that one pulled up as well?
I do. Obviously, you have LSU week 1. You have Troy at home, at Georgia Tech, Syracuse at home, at North Carolina, at Boston College, SMU at home, Duke at home, Florida State at home, at Louisville, Furman at home, and at South Carolina.
I mean, damn.
No Miami.
So, here's the thing. If you're Clemson, you could lose to both SEC teams and still get that automatic bid by winning the ACC, or still possibly.
Happened last year.
Yeah,
Georgia and South
Clemson,
Carolina.
every single one of Clemson's losses was from an SEC team.
Yeah, I just, again, SMU, a lot of respect for Rhett Lashley. Kevin Jennings coming back. You get him at home. Florida State, we'll see how that looks this year. I like Castellanos, but they got a lot of other problems to fix as well. You get them at home. I mean, at Louisville, is that the toughest road game? I mean, I don't want to disrespect Georgia Tech and Haynes King, but I mean, I'm talking about in conference.
Yeah.
I know at South Carolina, which I believe they go to South Carolina this year, is probably going to be tougher.
I'd say at Louisville.
And we'll see. I mean, I'm interested to see Miller Moss at Louisville. But as far as the Clemson side, I do want to get back to kind of, what elevated Clemson, because it's funny, we always talk about, Ole Miss elevated because of the line of scrimmage. Clemson's always been, now the offensive line has kind of fallen off in places, especially here recently compared to what they had when they were, winning national championships. But Clemson's always been pretty damn good on the line of scrimmage. The problem was they didn't have a ton of playmakers on the outside. Remember a couple years ago, we were like, well, we like Cade Klubnik. We think he can develop into something, but where are the T. Higgins? Where are the Nuke Hopkins? Where are the Justin Rosses? Well, last year, they found some. And they were young. You look at Wesco, some of the pieces that they have that can go get it, that can threaten the defense in that third layer to open up everything else. And that's when you saw Clemson start to ascend. Now, I know that, Georgia game in the beginning
wasn't great.
Was ugly, but it was their first time dancing together, and you were in the finals of Dancing with the Stars, right? That's a tough one to start against an NFL defense, really. But I'm very excited because Cade Klubnik made a big jump last year.
Yeah.
But football's the ultimate team sport.
Especially
you got to have guys around you.
Well, I thought both these quarterbacks, Nussmeier, Arcade, if they wanted to, could have went to the draft last year. But the big matchup to me and the big key to me is what was Clemson somewhat struggled with last year, especially early, was explosive plays. Hurting you in the back end, right? You were talking about goal line struggles. Sometimes it helps when you have guys on the outside who can just go get it and go hit a home run. And what was the LSU terrible at giving up? explosive plays. One of the worst teams in college football giving up explosives. If you're LSU, when it comes to this, do you want it to be a shootout against Clemson?
I don't
Or do you want it to be a low-scoring game? And if you're Clemson, do you want it to be a shootout against LSU? Or do you want it to be a low-scoring game? But I do think this, with Nussmeier, as good as he is, 4,000 yards through the air, he is a gunslinger. All right, and with gunslingers, it comes with what? Mistakes. We saw Nussmeier put balls in places last year in critical moments that you just can't do. And the big thing that's going to help Clemson is the QB run game, the RPO game, the read options. When a play breaks down, what can Cade do? He can take off and go. So we'll see.
That's why I think Cade, and again, it's tight, but if you gave me the option between having Cade Klubnik as my quarterback or Garrett Nussmeier right now, I would go with Cade barely because that running element, he's a good runner of the ball. Not that Nuss, I'm not saying he's, Professor X and rolling around in a wheelchair with a helmet on, but Cade can really do some things, even when he gets to the second level as a runner. But again, the biggest contrast and why I think this game to me is actually a little more attractive than the Texas-Ohio State game, and I know the hype for Arch, and we'll see Julian saying, is that you have two quarterbacks. The whole menu is going to be available.
Yeah.
You're not walking into this game trying to protect a young player early to get him going. I don't think you need a lot of just early fastballs to get into a rhythm. Whether you're, LSU with Nuss, whether you're Garrett Riley with Cade, like the whole menu is available from the jump, and you're returning talent. LSU has added talent. I just, the chess match offensively this is going to be must-see TV.
And what Texas proved a year ago in that college football playoff game against Clemson is that you can make it a shootout and you can score a lot of points without putting the football in the air. You can keep it on the ground. Now, they rushed for 293 against that Clemson defense, which I think that surprised a lot of us. I wonder how much LSU is going to go look at that and say, man, we can really run the football on these guys.
Yeah, and all offseason, though, Clemson's been showing that. Like, hey, we got gutted on the ground. I think a big point of emphasis with the coaching staff, I'm sure the strength and conditioning staff, when they're out there rolling them, they're out there running. If you can still roll
I just don't understand. And I get what you're saying when it came to that Texas offensive line was really good, extremely good. But so was that LSU offensive line. And Caden Durham's a damn good back.
He is a good back.
A damn good back. So I just don't understand the struggles. LSU could not run the ball last year.
That's what I'm saying. That was the biggest letdown. Nussmeier wasn't the biggest letdown last year, in my opinion. Hell, I don't think the defense was the biggest letdown. And it wasn't like their offensive line was bad. It's just you were expected to be dominant, overtly dominant. Like NFL guys all over the place, pushing people around and making it so much easier for Nuss and those guys on the outside, and you weren't able to do it. And that started against a USC defense that we got a lot of respect for D'Anton Lynn, but we're like, Will Campbell and these guys, and they talked it before. Remember, Will Campbell and them were talking it. Like, hey, we're going to go in there and headbutt lockers and stuff like that. And it just didn't come to fruition. So, there's a chance that I think this LSU offensive line could actually end up being better than the one they had last year. We got to see. But to your point, that was a big letdown for LSU.
You can't, if you're LSU, there's no way you're going to come out and win this game and be one-dimensional.
No, I agree with that.
There's 100%. No way. I think Clemson's too
especially
good.
On the road.
Overall, especially on the road. And overall, as just a program, there's no way you can do it. I'm surprised you lasted as long as you did last year, being one-dimensional. That's how good just Nussmeier is and the receivers that walk around LSU. This is going to be a hell of a game. The most interesting matchup to me, week one, is.
I agree with you 100%. I think this is the game I'm looking at. Like, this could be the best, cleanest game of two teams that should be pretty far ahead. We'll see with Texas and Ohio State where they can be, but these teams, if anybody's going to come out of the gate looking well-oiled, it should be
if you're Brian Kelly, do you just go ahead and try to establish it early on the ground?
I think you got to mix it. You got to mix it up. Like, you got to be. I don't know if you go into this game pitching backwards, right, and put a lot on Nuss early. I think you just got to go take what they're giving you. I'm interested to see first down play calling from LSU in this one, to your point. Is it something where they come out and say, hey, this is a new year, this is a new us, let's get it on the ground and open things up in the back end? Or they say, hey, let's go play action power pass on the first one. Let's take a shot on a post. We'll see, because, again, you return that quarterback for a reason. But let us know in the comments. It's an early preview. We're going to have a full preview with a prediction as we get closer to the season. But this is a game we cannot wait. Where are you leaning right now? Would you take Cade Klubnik? Would you take Nuss? It should be a hell of a matchup. We're already ready for football season. I know you are as well. And just like the chances of me not just hoping I go to sleep and wake up and it's football season, which that would mean I'm in a coma, but I guess that'd be okay. We're going. Go.